Take a look at the current state of professional tennis. Take a look at the dialogue that spreads around the WTA schedule from director to director and from tournament office to tournament office. Because a fundamental change has occurred. And you will see that this is about much more than a single wild-card entrance into a single clay court event in southern Germany once you fully comprehend the significance of what Marcus Gard just made. This has to do with a reckoning. This is about a sport that is fixated on evidence that it can no longer afford to ignore. And lastly, taking decisive action. Alex Eala has been sent straight into the main draw by Marcus Gard, the event director for the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix in Stuttgart. Nor through qualifiers, nor through an initial test meant to weed out players who haven't yet been thoroughly mapped out by the establishment. Right into the big attraction. And you have a fundamental misconception about how men and women at his level function if you believe the decision was taken carelessly, that Gard just picked up the phone on a leisurely afternoon and made a hasty decision. These individuals are not impulsive. They are stewards of events that have legacies, business alliances, histories, and devoted fan bases that were built over decades. Gard hosts one of the WTA's true crown jewels. Stuttgart is already a prestigious city. The Porsche name is already affixed to it. Every year, it already attracts passionate audiences and elite competitors. He doesn't pursue headlines. He is not a director who is desperate for a marketing angle or trying to get recognition. This indicates that the information in front of him has grown too dense, too consistent, and ultimately overpowering for someone of his size and experience to ignore. He looked at the pattern. He following its path, which brought him to this location. Now let's discuss that evidence. The image it presents is quite remarkable, so let's examine it thoroughly. In 2026, begin with Indian Wells. Because what transpired at Indian Wells was a seismic event rather than just a successful week at a famous tennis tournament, you must start there if you want to understand what the Gard is reacting to. An extraordinary event occurred on the ticketing networks as soon as Alex Eala's first-round match was announced. Demand didn't only increase. It didn't simply rise in the manner that a well-known player attracts attention. The system completely collapsed. The infrastructure was unable to handle the unexpected and strong influx of fans. In the entire recorded history of that event, Indian Wells had never seen prices rise to such heights. And after all was said and done, a single first-round match, not a final or semi-final, had brought in $5 million from ticket sales. Give that amount some time to settle. $5 million, one player, one match, first round. The Eala effect is the term that came out of Indian Wells and is being used in every event office on the tour. The Gard has heard it. He has researched it. He has most likely spoken with co-workers who were there when those figures were verified. This particular feature, however, transforms the Indian Wells story from a financial achievement into a true cultural phenomenon. The individuals who bought those tickets were not just tennis enthusiasts. They weren't the regulars who strictly adhere to the rankings and are aware of every seed and draw prior to the start of the competition. They were individuals who had never in their life thought to enter a tennis stadium. People from all around the world are coming to witness something historic and experience what it's like to be inside that arena as Alex Eala enters the tunnel and onto the court. A sporting event ceases to be merely a competition when it starts drawing that kind of crowd, people who are completely beyond the traditional base of the sport. It turns into a cultural event. It becomes something that goes beyond the bracket, the rankings, the prize money, and everything else the sport typically uses to define itself. Gard is sitting in Stuttgart taking it all in and asking himself one very straightforward and very pragmatic question. Why shouldn't that happen here before moving on to Austria, the Ladies' Linz Open? Almost immediately after Eala was selected to compete against Julia Graber in Austria, something noteworthy surfaced from the ticket data. Austrian supporters that came to cheer on their home team did not buy 90% of the tickets. They were bought by Eala supporters who had purposefully organized across national boundaries to pack that stadium. She entered her home court as the useful away player while competing in her own nation. Before she even went outside to warm up, the crowd had already been claimed. Sandra Reichel, the director of the tournament, knew exactly what she was looking at. She didn't stop. She didn't use hedging. She personally promised to welcome Eala to the event and publicly pledged to put her on the biggest court possible. She made a clear statement. In its 35 years of existence, the Ladies' Linz Open had never encountered such an atmosphere. This young Filipino tennis sensation was going to give something that the event had never seen in its 35-year history. Gard has read the entire narrative. He has considered what it means for a tournament to have Stuttgart's infrastructure, prestige, and ability to go ahead of this wave rather than just watch it go by. Then there's Miami. James Blake didn't wait for the information to come in. He positioned Eala on center court and discussed the significance of her participation for the event in an open, honest, and straightforward manner. He pointed out that her popularity had spread far beyond the typical tennis audience, attracting supporters from North America, Europe, and Asia as well as those who had not previously been regular tennis fans. Blake claimed that her presence will cause Miami to break revenue records. He stated it candidly and on tape. He realized something about this moment that all astute directors have come to realize. Regardless of cash, no marketing department can provide the kind of audience expansion Eala creates, the kind that reaches people who often don't interact with your product at all. With a campaign, you cannot purchase that result. It originates from a single player who draws on the culture in a way that defies description. Blake's words have been meticulously recorded by Gard. It has been filed with everything else he has learned about this player and this phenomenon. This is where Stuttgart's choice becomes even more complex and significant because this isn't just a business tale. Beneath all of this lies a true sporting logic that merits more investigation. The Stuttgart tournament is held on clay courts. Other surfaces just don't hold a player to the same standards as clay. Every match must be played with physical freshness. It requires tactical acuity developed from rhythm and preparation. From the first ball struck in round 1, it requires complete mental preparation. There is no moderate warm-up during the qualifying rounds. They are tedious. By entering straight into the draw, they use up all of those resources, freshness, sharpness, and preparedness, before the main draw competition ever starts. Gard is doing more than just creating a profitable result. He's making a conscious sporting choice. From the first round, he wants Eala to perform at her best on the Stuttgart clay. When those circumstances are met, he has witnessed what she creates. He wants that version of her to compete at the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix. The sporting rationale and the business logic are pointing in exactly the same direction. When that occurs, the choice becomes not just justifiable but also unavoidable. This season also contains a cautionary tale, which Gard has researched with the same attention he applies to the success stories because he is so knowledgeable and perceptive. At the Australian Open, despite the massive and well-documented demand from Eala's global fanbase, she was assigned to smaller courts. After then, there was mayhem as hundreds of thousands of fans waited in lines that were much longer than anyone could have imagined, and many of them never even made it through the gates. This is what made the system's failure instructive rather than merely regrettable. It simply failed to account for the enormity of what it was handling. In answer, her appeal did not diminish. It became more intense. The supporters who were unable to enter did not leave and focus their efforts elsewhere. They got more resolute, more outspoken, and more devoted. The tournaments that had accurately predicted the moment, analyzed the data, and provided her with a stage her fans requested won prizes their events had never seen before. The miscalculation at the Australian Open turned into a cautionary story that was openly and seriously debated across the port. Protect intends to prevent Stuttgart from becoming that narrative. He looked at the lesson and decided to take a different route, but he took a step back from the income and crowd management and paid attention to what the players themselves were saying. This is because when seasoned, well-known competitors start using these terms, the entire tour notices. One of the most tough and well-respected players on the wide receiver team is Jessica Pegula. At the Miami Open, they faced Eala. Following that interaction, she said the mood was unlike anything she had ever experienced in her professional career. She refrained from using ambiguous superlatives. She was precise. According to her, the fans weren't spectators in the conventional sense. They took part. Whether it was the Australian Open Dubai or Miami, every point, every rally, and every exchange ball generated a reaction that Pegula called insane, a level of passion and true emotional intensity that no other player on the circuit was producing. When a rival with Pegula's track record and expertise claims that she has never experienced anything like in her career, it is not a light-hearted comment intended to make a soundbite. It is evidence. It is a piece of information provided by someone who has participated in the most intense environments the sport can create. And that's exactly how every director who hears it handles it. Then there are Novak Djokovic's remarks, a man whose connection to greatness is as well documented and scrutinized as anyone who has ever used a racket. He referred to Alex Eala as the best tennis player the Philippines has ever produced. Take a close look at that. At a news conference following a game, that is not a courteous praise. That is a statement made by someone who has spent the better part of 2 decades living inside the realm of greatness and who knows what it requires at its most basic level. It doesn't go away when Djokovic says anything like that. The guard has heard it, and it lands with all of its weight. So take a moment to put yourself in the guard's shoes and examine what he is holding. The Indian Wells numbers are with him. According to Austrian crowd data, 90% of tickets were sold to fans who traveled abroad just to see this player. Blake's public remarks from Miami are with him. According to Pegula, he has an aura that is unlike anything she has experienced in her career. He has the words of Djokovic. The proven failure of the Australian Open serves as a warning to him. He has examined the entire trajectory of the 2026 season, tournament after tournament, city after city, demonstrating very consistently what transpires when Eala is completely accepted and positioned precisely where the evidence indicates she belongs. Create the case for putting her through qualifying now. Attempt to construct it. Look for the reasoning that says, look at Indian Wells' $5 million first-round ticket revenue and tell your fans to wait. Look for the logic behind Reichel's actions in Linz and Blake's actions in Miami, which were decisions made independently by seasoned experts who looked at the same data, came to the same conclusion, and chose to take the opposite action. There is no such thing. That decision is entirely unjustifiable in light of all the facts shown this season. It cannot withstand examination from any perspective that a guard could have taken, commercially, logistically, athletically, or otherwise. He has identified something that, at this particular moment, is quickly emerging as the defining fact of women's tennis. It's not just beneficial for Alex Eala's career to have her as your main attraction. For your occasion, it is revolutionary. Fans who have never seen a WTA match in their lives will be among those who enter Stuttgart's gates on the days she competes. The Porsche Tennis Grand Prix will create an atmosphere within that facility that is truly unprecedented. And all of it, this one choice, to look at the whole picture and declare without hesitation that this guy is not a qualifier, is the starting point for everything that is going to happen in Stuttgart. She plays main draw. The entire world travels to watch her play. Guard has stated as much. He has made that call. Furthermore, instinct was not the only basis for its construction. It was based on proof, a recorded, repeatable, and financially verifiable trend that could be seen in a variety of tournaments, continents, and situations. It was created by witnessing director after filmmaker grasp this player completely and leave with outcomes that their events had never produced before. It was developed by realizing that the Eala effect is more than just a social media rumor spread by casual fans. Revenue figures, crowd demographics, ticket demand data, and first-hand accounts from players who have played in the environment she fosters all attest to this quantifiable phenomenon. And now a genuine response is starting to be demanded for the question that lies beneath all of this. The question that no tournament director, no WTA official, and no serious tennis analyst can continue to avoid. After examining Alex Eala, director after filmmaker came to the same conclusion. It was reached by Miami, Linz, and presently Stuttgart. These are not planned actions carried out by a central office. These are independent evaluations conducted by seasoned, practical experts who looked at the same data in other places and came to the same result, raising what is increasingly becoming an inevitable institutional question. Is the WTA acting quickly enough as a governing body to formally reflect what this player represents for the future of women's tennis if the evidence is this consistent, the pattern is this obvious, and the full competition season is so well documented? Whether the institution is ready for it, that discussion is coming. The directors are already responding to it with their choices. And eventually, the system surrounding them needs to adapt to what the evidence is demonstrating, but that will be a discussion over the next weeks and months. Stuttgart currently has the most immediate story. The Porsche Tennis Grand Prix is set to transform into something it has never been. There is the infrastructure to manage it. It has the prestige to be amplified. There is the history to put it in perspective. And now, since Marcus Gard considered every outcome of the 2026 season and made the appropriate decision at the appropriate moment. At her best, Alex Eala will also be present in the main draw on the clay from round 1. Under Marcus Gard's direction, the Eala impact has arrived in Stuttgart, and this event is prepared for everything that comes with it. How do you feel about Gard's choice to put Eala in the main draw for Stuttgart? Does the sports justification have the same weight as the simply commercial calculation? Alongside you, is Stuttgart going to be the next pivotal point in the ALA narrative? Is the WTA itself lagging behind in formally acknowledging what this player signifies for the future of women's tennis, given that director after director has independently reached the same conclusions over the whole season? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below, as this discussion is still going strong. It's speeding up. The upcoming chapter, Stuttgart, will be worthwhile to watch.